Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, and in this Augmented video, we're going to be discussing and analysing tech news which, as usual, has popped up over the past 24 or so hours. We're going to be starting things out with Samsung, because the company has confirmed it is producing a chip specifically designed for mining. That's right, we can praise them because we may slowly see the GPU shortage begin to become a thing of the past. Then we'll move over to SK Hynix, who are ramping up production of components for the enterprise level SSD. Then we'll move over to Intel, because they want to make smart glasses a fashion accessory that you will not want to live without. Then, speaking of Intel, the former president of that particular company has launched a new chip company, and they are being backed by the Carlyle Group. And then finally, in yet another chip, this one being produced by Lightmatter, they are producing a new AI-specific chip, which is going to be somewhat reinventing the wheel. But we'll talk about that stuff in just a moment. I guess the big question is, where the hell have I been? Well, I'm still sick at the moment with a cold, which I've had for just over a week, and it was a really vicious one. It was kind of a cold plus a sinus infection. I've got somewhat of an earache, which is not ideal. So I've been pretty much at the point where I just was not able to record. I've been coughing and spluttering. It was like every other word, and I was just coughing. There was just no way I could get in front of the microphone. I've tried several times, and I just gave up. Before that, I was in Norway, and viewers may recall that I was supposed to be back on the Thursday. No, I didn't come back. Well, what happened there? Well, some of you know this anyway, because I did post about this on Facebook, which of course is facebook.com/RegamerTech. But I was in Norway, and on the Wednesday, my friend and I were kind of doing some sightseeing stuff, and I was walking across solid ground. Unfortunately, what happens in Norway, the long and short of it, and many of you who kind of live in Nordic countries will know this anyway, it snows, and then the snow melts, it forms ice, and then more snow comes, and that cycle repeats and repeats. So you get layers of ice. And what happened is, I was walking, my foot went onto one of the ice layers, went through a couple, and then basically my foot just went whoop. So I ended up slipping over, smashing my shoulder and my elbow. Fortunately, it was not like broken or anything, but it was twisted. So it was quite painful for 2 or 3 days. So what I decided to do is to just reschedule the flight. I had to cough up for a new plane ticket, which kind of sucked, but it was quite cheap anyways. It wasn't a big deal. Because I just didn't want to have to deal with carrying luggage and all of that stuff with kind of a shoulder problem. So after like 1 or 2 days, my shoulder and elbow, the swelling went down, which was good, and I was able to kind of sleep better there. And then on the Sunday, when I was coming back home, I noticed I was starting to feel ill with, yes, a cold. So came home, and then I just got ravaged. So it's been a fun couple of weeks, pretty much. But anyway, I'm back, and hopefully I'll start to produce content as normal. I have been putting articles out on the website, as some of you may be aware, which we're going to be pushing the website more over the next several months anyway. But let's get on with the news today, shall we? So, Samsung are going to be focusing on, well, not their specific focus of course, but they will be putting out a chip specifically designed for mining. So of course, if you've been wanting to buy a new computer or upgrade your current computer, right now is a terrible time. Not only are memory prices going absolutely ballistic, but you've also got GPU shortages, and of course a lot of that is because the GPUs are being gobbled up to mine various cryptocurrencies. What this chip will look like, in other words, the specifications and so on, are still somewhat up in the air. All Samsung have said on the matter is Samsung's foundry business is currently engaged in manufacturing of cryptocurrency mining chips. However, we are unable to disclose further information details regarding our customers, end quote. And this is a weird position to be in. First of all, Samsung are the biggest seller of chipsets. They are bigger than Intel, they're bigger than AMD, they're bigger in Nvidia, you get the point. And Samsung are already instrumental in the production of GPUs. Now, of course, they don't produce all of the chips by any stretch of the imagination, but they do produce quite a large number of high-capacity memory chips for GPUs. So, obviously, they are already making money, indirectly of course, through the cryptocurrency craze. How much this actually helps us as end customers is somewhat unknown. I guess it really depends on the pricing and the level of availability for the average person. Obviously, large-scale mining productions will probably be gobbling these things up. However, if you're just looking to buy a couple of GPUs to, let's say, mine Ethereum, then you still might just go ahead and pick up, let's say, a Vega card or whatever. But, once again, it comes down to affordability, power consumption, heat production, and how long that GPU takes, or how long that chip in this case takes to actually pay for itself. So for example, if the chip takes, let's say, 4 months to pay for itself rather than a GPU which may take, let's say, 6 months, I'm obviously just pulling random figures out of the air, then even if this chip does cost more money, it might be the better way to go. So we're just going to have to see. But it is quite interesting, especially with all of the things we've heard recently. For example, a couple of banks in the UK have already started their war against cryptocurrencies, where now you're no longer able to purchase Bitcoin using your debit card / credit card, which is issued from a couple of these banks. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this market takes place. Personally, I do believe cryptocurrency is going to continue. I don't think that it's going to be necessarily in the state it is now. I think there's going to be some flux in the market, and I think there is going to be some standardization in theory, but of course, as usual, a lot of the stuff we'll just have to wait and see. That's right, I'm going to go there and see how the chips fall. Come on, you admit it. You needed me to say that to you. Anyway, there's a press statement from SK Hynix, and this one's at least worthy of skimming over, because SK Hynix are ramping up enterprise SSDs, and they will have a maximum density of 4 terabytes. This is thanks to a 72-layer, 512 gigabits 3D NAND flash chips. To put that into some level of perspective, if you were to try and fill this thing with Ultra HD movies, you would put about 200 of them, assuming each was 20 gigabytes in size. And read and write speeds for these eSSDs is also pretty impressive. You have a read speed of 560 megabytes per second, or a write speed of 515 megabytes per second, and that will operate at 98,000 random IOPS input-output operations per second, and 32,000 random write IOPS. And now onto Intel and augmented reality, which is somewhat of a dirty term to many, but it actually is a very cool technology, at least when it continues to mature. Augmented reality does have the ability, once again the technology becomes further improved, to provide us everything we need. We could, for example, wearing a display around our face, and we could perhaps get personalized information as we were doing a museum tour. Perhaps we could have a Google Maps or an equivalent appear in one small section of our vision, but then also we get almost a street level view of where we're going, with perhaps information telling us, okay, you need to turn the next left, which is in, let's say, 30 meters time. Google Glasses as well as Snap Spectacles have had their chance in the sunlight, but it just hasn't really come to the level of or the level of acceptance as those companies had hoped for. But now we have the Vaunt glasses from Intel. They weigh under 50 grams, and they work with either prescription or non-prescription lenses. Now, there is a couple of things here. They don't have a camera equipped, but they also managed to cram an awesome amount of technology, into a very standardized looking frame. There's a processor, an accelerometer, a Bluetooth chip, a compass, as well as a low-powered Class 1 laser. And supposedly the image it projects can do everything from giving you a notification, for example, that it's someone's birthday, perhaps a notification that you have a caller from your phone, or even be used to perhaps give you the recipe for the food that you're cooking. Now, this laser beams directly into your eye itself, into your retina, and therefore the image should always be in focus. Now, don't worry, the laser power is very low, so it's not like you're suddenly going to have your eye burned out or anything like that, so there's not going to be like any Dead Space type of fatalities. Intel are also very happy to open up the technology and the platform, and they're going to offer SDKs to early adopters to encourage support. And obviously this is just a first generation, and as the technology improves, we're going to see things such as smart assistants become part and parcel of this, or perhaps a improved, or rather a built-in microphone. So currently the first generation of Vaunt models will be controlled simply by subtle motions, like for example if you were to nod your head. From a personal perspective, and this comes into a discussion I had with Nvidia's Neil Trevitt, we had an interview with him, and he himself is quite a staunch advocate of augmented reality, and to be honest, when we get to that stage, and it will happen, at least in my opinion it will happen, but I believe that we're still pretty early and we're still in that experimental phase, but I think in 5 to 10 years, when we not only have a large amount of processing power in a smaller form factor, but also, you know, display technology improves, plus as well we get even faster mobile internet with larger amounts of bandwidth, and importantly as well, the software itself, artificial intelligence, also matures along with it. So I think these are kind of like the early versions, and I think that they do have issues, but I think eventually this technology is very exciting and will be very cool indeed. Now let's talk about a former Intel president. Her name is Renee James, and she has unveiled, along with her company Ampere, the first custom ARM v8A 64-bit server chip, and this runs up to 3.3 gigahertz and can support up to 1 terabyte of memory and a power envelope of just 125 watts. Now what she's not done yet, along with her company, she's not ready to share pricing, but she did say, and of course she is touting her own product here, but she did say that the chip would offer, quote, unsurpassed price/performance that would exceed any high performance computing chip out there. So she actually worked for Intel for 28 years, so she does have an awful lot of experience, and supposedly, and obviously these products have not been unveiled as yet, they are working on other solutions and other types of chips, which will be eventually shown off over the next several months/years. This new company, which is based in Santa Clara, by the way, that's an excellent series on Netflix, not sponsored, but if you ever get a chance to watch Santa Clara Diet, you should. It's quite cool if you're into kind of silly comedies or zombie movies, that type of thing. Very worth checking out. Anyway, it has between 300 to 400 people working on, and she points out it's not a garage startup. The company, although she's not obviously giving figures, they are extremely well financed, and what is by the Carlyle Group. And what's very interesting, and I actually really respect this, she said, when asked why she's doing this, quote's pretty short, but she said, "You're only done until the next great thing is done, and you're not done anymore." In other words, she just wants to pursue a challenge and the love of technology. And you know what? I completely and utterly respect that. In fact, she even offered this as well. When you are doing something new, that's a breakthrough. People say, how are you going to do this? And then she just said, well, my entire life I've been doing things I was told I couldn't do. Slightly off topic, but those are very similar quotes to what Arnold Schwarzenegger has said before with his rules. If you've not checked that out, you should also do so on YouTube. You should check out, just search for Arnold Schwarzenegger rules. It's quite interesting. And I will say, another thing that I'm giving her props for is she's also acknowledged that there are issues with Spectre and Meltdown in the CPU arena as a whole, and she said that while no modern chip can completely and utterly escape the issues, ARM as an architecture isn't impacted as much as, let's say, a Haswell-based processor. She didn't say that in words from Intel. So the chips that they are producing will already have the patches built into them, so when they hit the market, you won't have to worry about operating system patches or any of that type of thing. These chips, by the way, are of course for high performance computing, and we're looking at a series of specifications. We're looking at high I/O memory bandwidth, so we've got PCIe Generation 3, SATA Generation 3, USB, workload accelerators, error correction support, and of course, very important for data centers, you have high integration and power efficiency, full virtualization, security features, and of course, support for enterprise-grade operating systems. And from one company doing cool things, which are manufacturing new chips, to another company which is manufacturing cool stuff and producing new chips, and that is Lightmatter. Now, they are a startup, and they are looking to revolutionize, God, you can tell that I can't speak today, computing. The CEO of Lightmatter is Nick Harris, and he wrote a thesis at MIT and also published several papers to show the feasibility and viability of photonic computing architectures. And so, you can guess what this company is doing. No, they're not producing a new pizza. What they are doing, of course, is producing a chip which is based on photonic technology. And so that this chip can perform calculations at the speed of light. And as you can imagine, one of the applications that the company are looking at is artificial intelligence, machine learning, and Mr. Harris was discussing this with TechCrunch in an interview. I'm going to read out the quote. One of the symptoms of Moore's laws dying is that companies like Intel are investing in quantum and other stuff, basically anything that's not traditional computing. Now is a great time to look at alternative architectures. A lot of deep learning relies on specific operations that our chip can accelerate. It's a special case where a special purpose optical computer can shine. This is the first photonic chip that can do that accurately and in a scalable way. So currently, Lightmatter has produced a chip which has 32 neurons. Now, they are wanting to create one with hundreds. Now, his reasoning here was pretty simple. You can't go faster than the speed of light, right? When you're producing these chips, you can't break the speed of light. But what you can do, just like a modern GPU or a modern CPU, for example, if you were to look at the progress of CPUs, what's happened? You've had additional processor cores, right? So they can do similar here. They can simply scale the chip up so it will become denser, and therefore more work can be done in parallel. Therefore, you're also scaling the performance of the chip along with it. Now, just to be clear here, there's not going to be one of these things sitting in your desktop next year. These are designed specifically for developers, for artificial intelligence programmers. For example, they would be purchased by, let's say, Google. They would be purchased by, for example, Amazon. And the idea is that they could use those to train artificial intelligence or robotics or electronic assistants, that type of thing. And you've perhaps seen this before with Nvidia and the robot golfer. It's a pretty infamous section that happened, I think it was last year's GDC. I may be wrong on that, but basically there was a robot golfer that of course was being powered by artificial intelligence. The idea here is that artificial intelligence would start out being not even sure how to even hit the ball. And then obviously as it learned, it was like, okay, well, here's how I aim at the golf ball, here's how I now hit the golf ball. Okay, that's too gentle, it's not going close enough to the target. Okay, now I need to adjust my aim so it actually, roughly goes towards the hole. Okay, now I need to increase the force I hit the ball. And basically it does this over and over and over again. So from the beginning, it literally can't even hit the ball. Of course, eventually it starts going wide, but it's at least hitting it, and it begins to hone in, and eventually it can sink this tennis ball every single time without any failure. And now you've got an artificial intelligence that's trained to do this specific task, and once you've trained it, you can then simply duplicate that data, duplicate that knowledge, and create 1,000 of these robots, 10,000 of these robots, 1,000,000 of these robots that could essentially become perfect at that one task. And I guess artificial intelligence right now is still very early. We're still not really sure, not just of some of the programming techniques, but also we're still quite early in actually producing silicon which is specifically designed for them. And of course there are GPUs and other specialized hardware, but even so we're still increasing that. For example, Nvidia have just added the tensor cores on the Volta architecture for deep learning. And when it comes to actually the programming of the chips themselves and the actual writing of the AI, it's definitely going to become more evolved and start to evolve considerably faster over the next several years. Anyway, that's just about it for this particular video. As you can tell, I'm kind of struggling to get through this one. My focus is not that great because, well, sinus headaches suck. But over the next couple of days, I will be back to normal. I'm looking to appear on camera later this week. I would appear today, but quite frankly, I look like a zombie, so probably best not to. But once again, over the next few days, things shall get back to normal. Thanks to everyone who has wished me, a speedy recovery. For those who have messaged me on Facebook, Twitter, email, very appreciated. Kind of behind on messages. I will get back to that over the next couple of days as well. I've just been pretty much out of it. I've not even been doing client work. I've just felt so crap. So, you know, unfortunately life happens. Sometimes you just get sick. Sometimes you know, injure yourself. It is what it is. But normal stuff. You know, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.